Hello everyone, this is General Hand Grenade. Welcome to my war room in Prince George, British Columbia. I know I told you last time that the next video would be on the needed units, but there's an announcement that I wanted to make first. That video will come this week, the needed units for Global War 1914. But I wanted to make an announcement because I think it's pretty important. It's so that we can communicate better with the community. And so let me just show you what we have here. So this is the website, the ABGB website that you know about. Here, let's zoom that in a bit. So this is where we have the reference sheets and everything, right? Let me just, so yeah, like all the reference sheets are there, and it's called downloads. But I really don't think you should download any of this stuff because we're updating them. And so that's what I want to talk to you about, is that, you know, like as it is right now, we have an email for Doug, but Doug doesn't do any of the updating for these things. He runs the company, and it's really Robert and I that are handling the game and the rules and, you know, doing the updating and things like that. So it would just be easier and faster if we could just have a place where we could go and have a place where the community could go to discuss these kind of things. There are questions that people have about the rules and clarifications that they need, and you know, point out things that we've made as mistakes. And already there's been some mistakes pointed out to us, like spelling errors, and you know, one place said militia instead of colonial troops. And this is great. This is the kind of feedback that we need. There's no need for a FAQ or an errata at this point, because we don't need to correct something in a different document. All the corrections that we're going to make are going to go right into the rules or the reference sheets or wherever those corrections belong, right? So anyway, let me just show you where we're going to be. Now, this community has been there for a while. I just joined it a few weeks ago. So you go to Discord. It's called Discord. And this is a Board Gaming Bros Global War Games. The whole, it's got all of the Global War Games on here. And the designers are here, like Morton is here from Global War 1936, and 1985 is here with Admiral Seabass, and 2025 is here. I'm not sure who's answering questions for that, if there's anybody doing that right now. Anyway, so Global War 1914 is going to be here now, specifically me. I'm going to be here. This is the Global War 1914 section here, and there'll probably be more sections. See, people are pointing out, you know, where there's been typos and things like that, and but like here's there's 85, and there's 2025, and V4's got a whole bunch of different places, different things. Like there's one for announcements and feedback and discussion and rules and all of that, right? So this is the only 14 one right now. We'll probably expand that so that there's more sections to this. Anyway, I'm going to put a link to the description box below the video for you to click on. And if you're not already a part of this community, then I highly recommend that you go there. It's not just for 14, obviously, right? Like most of the community there so far is for the 36 game, and of course, you know, that's the game that's been out for years. So I love that game. Anybody that ever plays it loves it, and so most of the people are there for that right now. And now we're going to, with the 14 game coming out real soon, we're going to be hosting and posting up there. So you can go there. And if you don't know who a Board Gaming Bro is, I've talked to him a few times. In fact, I just talked to him the other day about this to ask him if it would be okay if we did this. And he's a really great guy. He's got a channel on YouTube. And if you haven't subscribed to his channel, you know what? I'm going to leave a link to his channel in the description box as well. You can go check out his channel. I don't think I would even think about going to the site here if I didn't think that he was a really well-spoken person and somebody that I thought was doing a good job. You know what I mean? So yeah, I really like his videos. I like his channel. So go check out his channel. I'll leave that the link for you in the description box. So that's one thing I wanted to talk to you about. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is some of the discussion that has been here early on here for Global War 1914 is in regards to militia and colonial infantry, right? And so I thought that this would be a good time, a teachable moment, because there's a few different concepts at work here that are completely different from the 1936 game. Probably half of this game is the same as 36, and half of it is completely new. And so like people are wondering, like, why are militia and colonial infantry? Why do you have both? Why is there? And anyway, I'm going to explain that to you. I could have just wrote it in that forum, but it would have went on for pages, right, of discussion. I thought, and I'll do this for other things as well if I think that it's something that is going to be a little more difficult to explain. I'll just make videos and link to it from there, and that'll be one way that I can answer questions or make clarifications. So let's get to that. So we have these two units that on the surface look like they're exactly the same. We have militia and we have colonial infantry, and these are French versions of the militia and the colonial infantry. So they both are the same in that they both attack at 1, they both defend at 2, they both move 1, and they both cost 2. So you think, well, that's exactly the same. And it's not. And there's a reason for that. And as you see, as we go through this video, you'll see why. Like, people are wondering, well, what's the big deal about the colonial troop? I keep calling it colonial infantry, but it's actually called a colonial troop in this game. So forgive me if I make that mistake again. So what the most obvious difference is that militia are built in your home country, whereas a colonial troop is built outside of your home country. So you see this colonial troop here. I just put him there, but that's not normally where you would build him. You would build him in a colony of France, or a territory that you have conquered, right? That's the same as a colony, and that's for all the major powers. It's not just for France, obviously. So militia, they can move and attack within their home country. That's it. They can't move out. Like this guy here, if there was Germans here and there was a bunch more French here, he couldn't attack Bavaria from here. He can only attack within the home country. And I'm not going to bother explaining what home country means to you, because most of you by now know what home country is. And, you know, just a short explanation is the blue part here is the home country of France, right? But anyway, that's all militia can do. But that doesn't mean that that's the only place that you're going to have French militia. Like, one of the things that can happen in this game, there is diplomacy, right? And so the major powers get to roll dice. Some dice they can pay for and some dice they can earn. And they will roll those dice to try to influence other nations. And I just set this one up here because it's close to France and it's easy to see. So this whole country here, with all the Spanish flags on it, that is Spain. So let's assume that France does what it takes to influence Spain, and it aligns Spain. So let's just see what that looks like. Let's just snap our fingers here and see what happens. And there you go. So you see that we've aligned Spain with France, and so all of the units that were there become French units, right? Like, we've got the boats up here, and we've got all the units that are in here. They didn't have any other units in there. That's all they had there, so those are the only units that you put on. But you see here that it's got a militia, and that militia is not in French home country. But that's okay, because that's going to happen. You see, like, Spain did have militia, right? And so that is still a Spanish militia. It's just that they've aligned to the French. And we show that by having the French scalp there. But so now this guy cannot move because he is outside of home country. So that militia must stay there. All those other guys can move, like these guys can move, the artillery can move, they can move whatever they can do whatever they normally do, right? But that militia can't move because he is not in home country. Now, when at this point, after you've aligned Spain, you would not purchase more militia. What you would do if you wanted to put one of those units there is that you would purchase a colonial infantry. Like you could purchase other things, like you have a factory there, you could put something on your factory, but you've chosen to do one of these units. And so like you would put him, like for instance, you'd probably want to put him up here because you see this, well, I'll just put him there and I'll explain to you why. We're going to put him there because this territory is worth 1 IPP, and the only way that we can collect that 1 IPP is if we have a unit there. And let me just show you how that works and why that is. Let's just move the camera. All right, then we're looking. All the units aren't set on the board, of course. We're just going to do one small section just so I could show you why we have colonial troops. So the Germans have a couple of territories down here, and the British would like those territories. Now, it is hard to take territory in this game. For one thing, you're limited in the number of rounds that you can attack. The best you can do is 3 rounds, right? And depending on whether there's a trench line, which there isn't, and you probably won't see any trench lines in Africa, or if we're in the winter. In the winter, then it's all limited to one round. Now, we discussed that, the winter rules. It's an optional rule, but I recommend that you play it because it just adds a little bit of something. So every 3rd turn is winter, and all the attacks, including the ones out at sea, are limited to 1 round. Now, we talked about that, like there's no snow here, you know what I mean? But rather than have to list the places that are limited to 1 and then the other places are 3, or we thought, okay, the southern hemisphere would be wintertime in the summer like it normally is. We just thought, you know what, let's just make it winter rules once every 3 turns, and it's the wintertime turn on the board. So that's why we did it that way, just for ease of play, right? So you didn't have to look everything up constantly just to play the game. Anyway, so here we are. Now, there's something in the rules at 4.17 called garrison requirements. So certain land zones require a land unit, a garrison, to be present for major powers to draw the income from that territory. If the unit is not present during the place units and collect income phase, income cannot be collected from that territory. Now, you can put a unit there, like you can use all these units and then replace them, right? Just as long as you do that before it's time to collect your income, right? Now, that requirement is only in Africa, the Middle East, and Asia that aren't part of your home country. But it excludes Australia, New Zealand, and any other part of the world, like most notably Canada. And the reason for that is that, like, I live in Canada, and so I understand very well that that most of the population of Canada, especially at that time, like there's more diverse population now, but most of the population at the time of the First World War would have been from the British Isles, right? Like the vast majority of them. Right now, for instance, even we have 37 million people in Canada. Only 1 million of those people are the indigenous population. So there really is no need to have a garrison to ensure the loyalty of the people who live in that country, right? Whereas down in Africa, you know, like in Nubia, you might have to have, or you would have to have a garrison there of British troops, or at least British-led troops. Like they might be, like a colonial troop would be people from Nubia, but they would be led by the British, right? And if you didn't have that there, then the people might not be so loyal to England. and that's in this case. But Australia and New Zealand, like Canada, their populations are largely from the British Isles, and so they don't require that you that you I'm trying to be delicate here. They don't require that you are there to squash any rebellions. Let's just put it that way, okay? And so those three places, you don't have to do it. There is one more exception, but it's kind of the opposite. Let me just finish that off before we get to what's going on down there. So Ireland, like there's Ireland and there's Northern Ireland. Ireland is the one here, and it's worth 1 IPP. You have to garrison Ireland, even though it's not in those other three places. And if I have to explain to you why they have to do that, then 2 words: the Troubles. And I'm not laughing about that, and I'm not making light of it. That's a real thing. And the British did have a garrison there almost always, right? If not always, I'm not sure. But there's a definite historical precedent for them having a garrison there to control the Irish people, or to ensure their loyalty, if you want to put it that way. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong or anything. I have a friend from Ireland, and yeah, he's very vocal about his opposition. But anyway, that's why those places are different. Like, we try to make this game as historical as possible within the context of being able to play a game, right? Like, you can't do everything. So anyway, let's look at this here. And when it comes to placing units, you have to place units like the infantry class unit. You've got infantry, you've got colonial troops. And also, you can place cavalry, and you can place camels. You can place all of those where you see these silhouettes here. Those are manpower icons. And like, this is an older map. I think the manpower icons are going to look different than this. This is actually a couple of maps ago. I just pulled this one out of the closet so we could use it, right? But that's where you would put those things. If you had a factory, then you could put other units, right? Like, you could put an infantry, or you could put an artillery, but you couldn't normally place an infantry and artillery on a manpower icon. You have to have a factory for that. But you can place a colonial troop there. So the three things that you could place down here in Africa without without a factory would be the colonial troop, or the cavalry, or camel corps. And so these ones cost 4 IPP each. Like, the cavalry and the camel cost 4 IPP, but they're better units, right? They're going to attack at 3 and defend at 2. They're going to move 2 spaces. The camels have to go, like, here is desert here. They have to go in a territory with desert, or they can go one away, right? So, like, you could put them in Palestine. Well, there's a couple places you could put them anyway. They have to have a manpower icon. Well, here you could put it down here in the Belgian Eastern Congo, even though it's because it is adjacent to this territory. But that camel can't move further away from the desert than that. You have to be adjacent to the desert or in the desert to be able to move a camel. And so, there's a restriction for that, right? Anyways, and the cavalry doesn't move around in desert. And they cost more, right? But a colonial troop will satisfy your requirement for collecting your 1 IPP, 1 IPP, 1 IPP, 2 IPPs. Like, that's a lot of money you're leaving on the table when it comes time to collect your income, if you don't have any units there, right? Now, some of them you don't have to worry about. Like, for instance, here in the Eastern Belgian Congo, that's worth an IPP, so you would want to have a unit there. This one here, Western Congo, that's not worth an IPP, right? So whether you put somebody there or not doesn't really matter. Like this, they both will always be British until somebody else conquers them. It's just that You won't collect anything unless you have a garrison there to ensure the loyalty of the people, right? Anyway, so you want to do something down here. Let's say you want to attack down here, and you gotta take lots of stuff, because like I said, you don't get to do very many rounds, and these guys only attack at 1. You know, infantry attacks at 2. This guy attacks at 3. Artillery in this game attacks and defends at 4, not 3. And plus it still kicks up one of your infantry class units. So let's say that's what you do, right? So you go ahead and you take these guys out, right? And you were successful there, but you lose. Let's lose these 2 guys, right? So good for you. You took that IPP, and you have units there, so you're going to collect that IPP. But look, though, you've got this one is empty. This one is empty. Let's say you want to, and you've got these guys down here that are threatening South Africa, so you got to make sure that you have enough there, right? You want to move some stuff up, so let's move this guy up here. Well, now what do you do, right? Well, that's where the Colonial Infantry is really handy, because there's a manpower icon. I can place this guy there. I wouldn't be able to place an infantry there, but I can place that guy there. We'll place one down here to make sure that we've got enough to defend that. And one other thing you can do, both with militia and colonial troops, is that you can upgrade them, right? Only 1 unit, but you can upgrade them. So let's upgrade this guy here for 2 IPP, as long as he's in a supply path. So we're going to upgrade him to an infantry. So there you go. And now, like this guy, you don't want to move him away because you didn't buy something for that territory. If you moved him up, well, you're giving up that IPP for that turn. It's still British, you're just not going to collect for it. So, like, there's lots of IPPs in India, for instance, that you're going to want. You have to leave somebody there. It would cost you a lot more to put a lot of infantry or cavalry or something there, right? But putting colonial troops there allows you to do that, and that's the beauty of having colonial troops. They're not militia. They're from these places. Like these guys here are from the Congo, right? These guys are South African. You raised basically an army of local people. They would be led by the British, but they would be, the soldiers would all be from them. Now, instead of putting that guy there, like, you might have wanted to spend a little bit more, right? And you could go like that. Like, that would be cool too, right? It just depends on what's going on down here, right? You know, how much stock have the Germans put into doing stuff down here. You don't want to put too much money down here because most of the fight is in Europe, right? Like, you just can't afford to do everything everywhere. The British are all over the map here, just like the Commonwealth are in Global War 1936. So you got to pick and choose, right? And the easiest thing you can do is to place a lot of these colonial infantry and then upgrade them as you can, right? 1 per turn, you upgrade them, because an infantry is a lot better than a colonial troop. Colonial troop only defends at 2. The infantry defends at 4, right? So there is that. Anyway, is that all that I had to? Let me just take a look here. There is a couple of things that we have to change. We've already talked about it today, and so we are changing them. Anyway, so if you have any questions about that, then just, like I said, go to Board Gaming Bros thing there on Discord. It's an app that you do have to download. You can download it on your phone or your computer, and that's kind of cool. Like, you can actually do it on your phone, right? You can, you know, it's something you could do at work on your lunch hour or something like that if you had a question, or if you're following along with a thread or something like that. You don't have to wait till you get home and where you're at your computer, right? You can just follow along wherever you go. Anyway, so that's Colonial Troops and Militia. I think I've covered it all. If not, then we will clarify it at, like I said, at that Discord site. So that's all I got for you today. Don't forget those links in the description box below the video. Take care, everyone. General Hand Grenade out.